social safeness is a place where I can be honest and say, I made a mistake, I'm troubled, or you're a clinician, you think you're good, you think everybody else thinks you're good, you've got a client and you don't know what to do and you feel incompetent. Are you safe to say, I don't know what to do with this person? If we don't feel safe, it's actually quite a dangerous place to be. So our managers need to recognise that.
It's creating the circumstances where people are willing to come forward with maybe even things that they are finding really difficult to talk about, or to some extent might feel a bit ashamed of, but they feel safe that in their team or in with their manager, that they know that they would get support for sharing that information.
So we have different kinds of positive emotions as humans. We have one set that's related to the absence of threat, as being feeling more relaxed, for example. We have another set that's more energising and exciting. And we have a third set that's related to feeling contented. So that third set's actually quite important, because more than the other two, it can help us to moderate the worst excesses of our threat emotions. So it helps us to keep calm, moderate anxiety, and in particular moderate our own self-criticism. So when we're being judgmental of ourselves, if we feel connected with other people, and contented and secure in our own position and self-worth, it helps us with some of those threats that might be around. It doesn't make the threats any less, but it certainly helps us manage them better. So this third set of emotions related to contentment, can also be characterised by a sense of warmth and connectedness with our wider social environment. And therefore that has quite important implications for how organisations manage itself. So within an organisation, if you pay attention to the social safeness of your staff, then you're paying attention to staff resilience. So this idea is really connected to a more pro-social motivation, a motivation that relates to how we connect to each other. And this is really important, because often in organisations we pay attention to targets, we pay attention to, yes, we do pay attention to well-being, but understanding that actually ways of harnessing staff's connectedness to each other in those social networks is really important to help us towards those targets, to help staff to feel safe enough to be able to do their job effectively.
We're a large organisation. We have 6,500 staff and cover a vast geography. So we provide a natural community, if you like, within the organisation.
For me, it's around being genuine and authentic.
What's really important is when you're at work and you are caring for other people, that you need to be real. You need to be yourself. And that means that you do need to feel safe. Now normally you shouldn't, I don't think you should normally have to think about this, but many times people will be working in an environment where perhaps they feel threatened and they don't feel safe, and they maybe feel overly observed, judged, marked, concerned about making mistakes. And the importance of safeness is that, well, I suppose it's the opposite. If you're under threat, it is very difficult, therefore, to attend to suffering of others and yourself. I mean, this is such an important thing, because if you're under threat, you're automatically triggering self-protection. You're automatically triggering a barrier, and you're possibly automatically triggering a sense of falseness, pretense. And therefore you can't really engage. You can't engage the whole of yourself into the care of other people.
I've worked in lots of different teams where it's quite obvious, almost as soon as you walk into the room, that there's a level of comfort a level of interaction going on. You would describe it as a positive atmosphere, that there's an element of fun happening there. But when there are challenges or when there are difficulties, that people still raise those, and people are confident in talking about the things that are a challenge to them, and that they get support for that. I said I needed a laptop, and the organisation recognised I do, and giving someone a laptop is quite an expensive thing, so I got a laptop. I could use it at home. Then, even worse, I did something I shouldn't have done. My wife said, could she borrow it? It was fine, she couldn't go onto my stuff, she just used the laptop. So she went onto the laptop just to look something up. And as she was doing that, she had a glass of wine, and our son came and knocked the wine, and the wine ended up on the laptop. And it was all right for about 5 minutes, and then it went kaput. So I thought, well, I need to come clean about this. So I went, told my boss, told my colleagues what had happened to the laptop. And I'm not saying I wasn't embarrassed in being honest about what had happened. We had to get our IT people in, and the chap came and he said, so what's happened here? And I said, well, I spilt some wine on this laptop. And I said conspiratorially to him, has this ever happened before? And he said, this I found interesting, he said, well, no one's ever said that it's happened, but we obviously undo the laptop and we've found coffee, we've found hot chocolate, we've found alcohol, so it clearly does happen. But no one ever tells us. What they say is, computer stopped working. So what that leads me to suspect is it's a minor thing. People are not feeling safe, that they can say, you know what, I've spilt some coffee. They're probably not as bad as me, they wouldn't be drinking alcohol. I've spilt some coffee on my laptop. They don't feel safe to say that. So they will say, this is broken. Now, if we're doing that with a little bit of computer hardware, are we doing that in other areas where we've made a mistake? And are we feeling a point where we say, oh, well, I don't know why it went wrong? Because we don't feel safe. I'm very lucky in the team I work in. I knew I'd be ribbed, but I knew I'd be safe. The smart action is to come clean as quick as possible about the error. The smart action from the manager is to deal with the error. They then need, and this is something to do with just culture, to decide afterwards on the nature of the error.
This idea that we need social safeness at work in order to be able to do our jobs more effectively. I've been thinking about this in relation to compassionate culture, because we now have requirement to have whistleblown procedures in the NHS, so that staff who feel disempowered can raise concerns anonymously. So it's really important that we have that, and it's important that when staff raise concerns that they're taken seriously and that they're addressed. But I'm interested in whether that creates a socially safe place for people to work. Because if that's the only thing we rely on, then I think it might have some unintended consequences. Having the courage to raise issues with colleagues when you see that they are not living the values or being true to the goals that they set themselves, if they're not true to those, then surely it's better to have it raised. I would rather somebody raised it with me directly than have a full investigation. But one of the things I think might help is if leaders model those difficult conversations with each other. So it's not just how you have difficult conversations with those people more junior to you, how you model them up over in your organisation, so that you can give people real-time feedback, but in a caring way. So it's coming from a place of, actually, I am curious about what's going on, what's motivating you, and why are you not living those values, particularly if these things seem out of character for somebody. And there's something really important about having difficult conversations with people, and we can only do that in an atmosphere of social safeness. So to have those conversations requires a lot of trust, but it requires them to come from a place of fairness, for those conversations to be held in a regulated way, regulated in a sense, emotionally regulated, so not from a place of anger or rage, to actually be able to sit down in a reflective space. So it's not about punishment and it's not about blame, but it's about, literally about curiosity. How are you interested enough in our colleagues to take the time to find out what it is that is motivating them? And to hold each other to account in a very gentle way, so that we are all helping each other. We're using the social environment to help us towards those individual goals and values and professionalism that we might hold.
From my perspective as Chief Operating Officer of the Trust, being the senior person, if you like, responsible for clinical services, I have to rely on a lot of other colleagues to enable me to do my job, and that's a really useful network that I've developed with that. That team gives me a great deal of strength and support in order to sort of, I guess, shape the direction that we're taking within the organisation. We get together regularly, we share ideas, we problem solve, and we work through, I guess, where we're going as an organisation. We need to question ourselves, and we need to obviously ask ourselves on a regular basis, really, every time that some of these things happen, about how we learn lessons and how we actually take the positive from some of these things. I think one of the strengths of being a big organisation is that we have large groups of very dedicated and talented staff that are able to come together and to reflect on some of this experience and actually pull together to think about how they can use the best of their experiences to look across the organisation for where we have good practice. One of the things that we've encouraged is the development of leadership huddles within each team, bringing together the psychiatrist, the psychologist, the team manager and advanced practitioners to bring a multidisciplinary approach to how we can manage the work on a day-to-day basis. Bringing those people together really creates a sense of team at that top part of that part of our organisation, and that really enables us to have really fruitful conversations, to, I guess, problem solve jointly, to share some of the burden of leadership.
A colleague of mine shared a story and it's really changed my behaviour. What he said is that we spend a lot of our time asking people how they are, or responding to people saying, "Are you okay?" with, "Yes, I'm fine, I'm okay." And actually, we shouldn't ask that question unless we really want a response, or respond to it unless we're going to be honest. It's down to that personal interaction and feeling safe and trusting that person on the day, and actually feeling that when they ask the question, "Are you okay?" or "Can I help?" that they mean it. And I feel that you shouldn't ask the question unless you mean it, unless you're prepared to take the time and do something. And that reaps such fundamental rewards as well, because sometimes you do feel like you're carrying a worry, a burden, or a sense of happiness. And by passing that on, it makes it easier for you, and it also helps the other person.
I think it's very easy in leadership to try and get things done with a kind of a slight sense of threat and using dominance and hierarchy. For me, because I'm concerned about the quality of care, and with that I need to have a high quality of decision making, I need information. To get that quality of information, I need people around me to feel able to be themselves and be relaxed and not be under any sense of threat when they're in my presence. And I would acknowledge that because of my position, I'm in a hierarchical position, most people would see that. So I have to make an effort to encourage an equality of contribution from my team. And for me, the mark of that, what I look for as somebody who's kind of more at the top of the tree to a degree, is have I enabled everybody to contribute? But looking around my team this morning, everybody chipped in, everybody said things, everybody took part. It wasn't dominated by me. And that's what I'm looking for. I'm looking for an equality of input. And so safeness, what does that look like? That gives you multidisciplinary working. I don't know how you can get MDT working if people are under threat, because then people are quiet and therefore you don't get their thoughts, their knowledge, their expertise.
When teams are getting on but able to raise challenges, I think it comes from there being respect for each person in the team, and people feel that the things that they want to say, people will want to hear. So there isn't a hierarchical nature to the team, and everybody understands that why something might be important from an individual's perspective. It's about respecting everyone and being prepared to listen to everyone's issues and try and get to the bottom of what it is the person is really trying to say, and then have a focus on what are we going to do differently about this, because we don't want our members of our team feeling that they can't raise issues.